Dark Knight trilogy has been one of the most important trilogies in my lifetime. Whether you're talking about Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, or The Dark Knight Rises, I've talked about these films numerous amounts of times on my channel. But today we are going to be talking about the rise and the legacy of the Dark Knight trilogy, as it just got really brighter in here, rising. See, guys, before the superheroes ruled the box office, you had films like the first X-Men or Batman and Robin that killed the franchise completely, right? And Warner Brothers was in desperate need to reboot the franchise and do something different with Batman. And Christopher Nolan came along after doing Memento and doing Following, and they gave him a shot with full, free, creative freedom to pitch Batman Begins, which was known at the time, The Intimidation Game, as a working title, which I thought was pretty cool. But what we thought of at Batman Begins when the first time that came in the theaters, nobody would have thought it would have sprung out to two films after that. The film never made that much money. I think Batman Begins kind of more or less made close to what Superman made today, so to speak. But the thing is, the most important part was the style of the character. You know, obviously, with the good Joel Schumacher Batmans in the 90s, which was Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, one of the biggest things with them were they were joke. They wore weird, not gonna say plastic suits, but very, very over the top style of suits. Even though I actually am a big fan of the Panther suits from Batman and Batman Forever, I think they actually look great, but the campiness was too much, and you could tell the audience just fell flat on it. So the overall idea of Batman Begins was to achieve something completely different that Nolan had pictured in his head. And what that was go dark, realistic, grounded, and well, the rest is history. Batman Begins came out, made about, I think I said 600 to 800 million. I think it was more like 600 million. And we finally got a Batman on screen, aka still my favorite Batman. I always flip-flop between Christian Bale or Ben Affleck, but I really love Christian Bale. He's more personal to me as Batman since I grew up with Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. But what I will say is, with this Batman, the take on Gotham, even though it feels very Chicago-esque throughout the whole film, the realistic, the grounded take that you could actually believe that this person exists in this world, and even our world too, it's more believable than ever, and that's one of the things I think they best achieve with Batman Begins. I love the Tumbler. It is probably still my favorite Batmobile to date, and I love the Batman Begins suit. Something about that suit just looks beautiful. And the whole origin retelling the whole story of Batman, where he goes to train with the League of Shadows, trains with Ra's al Ghul, goes up against Scarecrow and Falcone in the film. I loved it. One of the things with Batman Begins that I really liked was its style of showing Batman more shadow-esque. When we get through talking about The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, I think each film shows Batman in a different light, like most films would do. But I think that this Batman Begins is probably the most Batman film out of the whole Dark Knight trilogy. If you think about it, you got The Dark Knight mainly more esque with crime mob and the Joker. Dark Knight Rises is more of a Bruce Wayne style story, and I like that dynamic. I like that aesthetic, so to speak. But with that being, after Batman Begins came out and it was pretty much a box office hit at the time, what came next? Amount of promotional material that they did for The Dark Knight is fucking insane. They did the hidden trailer, they did so many cool merchandise, toys, things like that for The Dark Knight. My buddy's crying. Why are you crying, buddy? You okay? Oh, he's sitting there. At the end of the day, we did not know what to expect. We got our first look at Heath Ledger. Everybody hated Heath Ledger. I was really young at the time. I think I was 6 years old. I think it was when Dark Knight was coming out. Maybe 6 or 8, one of those numbers. And I never really knew, but like a lot of people hated the casting of Heath Ledger. But I saw this film. I got to sit down and see this film actually at home. I told the story multiple times. I never got to see the Batman Begins or The Dark Knight in theaters until later on. But I did get to see this at home when it came out right away. And wow, I was just blown away by what I saw. It was always going to be probably my favorite movie to this day of all time. The Dark Knight is just a masterpiece of what it's achieved, whether it's visually, whether it's performance, aesthetic, practical effects, IMAX sequences, anything you name it. It is truly insane. The level of scope and scale that The Dark Knight was able to achieve. This is the first time that I believe, if I'm correctly wrong, that this is the first film that Christopher Nolan, not even just Christopher Nolan, that was filmed IMAX sequences. I think IMAX really originated with this big budget film, The Dark Knight. But with that being said, I don't have to talk about the performance of Heath Ledger so much. We all know it's great. But what I really want to dive into is the message of the film. The Batman Begins, you have fear. It's more fear-centric. The Dark Knight's got more of chaos, uncontrolled chaos. And The Dark Knight Rises is definitely a mixture of more like pain, so to speak, hope, things like that, it being lost. But with that being said, with The Dark Knight, you can even just tell one of the most iconic posters that we've all seen is Batman standing there with the blue tint. Oh, I love it. I think I got the steel book right here just to give an example. Always got to flex my physical media. But this poster, I have like 2 of them. I'm probably going to get another one too. It is truly just showing the chaoticness of it. Let's put this up there as we talk about. This is actually probably one of the worst. I would have rather preferred getting the steelbook of like Batman gliding. But as we talk about him, but this one does go hard, I'm not gonna lie. Why not put them up there just in the background as we talk about these films? But what I will say though is with The Dark Knight, the level, like I was saying, the practical effects, flipping the truck, whether it's the Hong Kong base jump, so many things with these IMAX sequences really pop. You have the addition of Harvey Dent in the film. You have performances given by Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Gary Oldman brings his A game all the time as Commissioner Gordon. I love him. I think he's still my favorite Gordon to date. Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox. Michael Caine is always going to be my favorite Alfred. I respect other Alfreds like Andy Serkis and Jeremy Irons, but I will say that Michael Keaton's always going to be my Alfred. I love him. I just fucking love him. And that score. I really love the score from Batman Begins. And when Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard came back to do The Dark Knight, I love that Joker score. I love everything. They amped it up, make it more chaotic. You can feel the tension. Just the whole film, the message of uncontrolled chaos. It truly... And it's what the best thing I think that works about The Dark Knight is it is truly centered around crime. It's a crime thriller, more or less than a superhero movie. That's why I say Batman Begins is more your superhero movie out of the whole franchise, out of the whole trilogy. It's just something about The Dark Knight. You can sit down and watch it and you forget that this is a comic book movie, so to speak. It is like a crime movie. And that's one of the things that I think works really well for it. Guys, and the Bat Pod's so fucking sick. But I love The Dark Knight. It is definitely still my favorite film of all time, for sure. Film of all time for me too, and I have more of a personal attachment to this film is The Dark Knight Rises. When you go from making the leap from The Dark Knight and then having the tragic death of Heath Ledger, you go to The Dark Knight Rises, what are you going to do? And you bring in Bane instead. Now, the original plan, I think, for The Dark Knight Rises was to have Joker be on trial. Harvey Dent escaped the fall, and he survived it, so to speak. And they were still going to have Bane in the film, more portionally being the main villain. But I was very intrigued by the sense of having Bane because I really like that physical presence. So I was really excited at the time. And I remember we went to this restaurant. My uncle brought over his iPod, and we connected to the Wi-Fi. We watched the Dark Knight Rises trailer. Actually, that was the second time. The first time I watched the Dark Knight Rises teaser trailer, it was the trailer with the kids singing the national anthem. Might have been the official one. I actually watched it in a McDonald's parking lot because our Wi-Fi was so shit at the time that it wasn't even connecting well. So we watched it in a McDonald's parking lot. I was blown away. I love the promotional ideas that they did for the Dark Knight Rises, hyping it up that it is the epic conclusion of the Dark Knight trilogy. And when I saw this film, so I saw this film twice in IMAX. I've seen it over 20 times, or no, over 12 times in theaters, whether you say back in 2012 or you say back in, or a couple of years ago, actually, I got to go see The Dark Knight Rises again. And what I will say, though, is 2012 was a big year for comic book movies. You had the Avengers, which I love that film to death. I love the first Amazing Spider-Man. So it was a lot coming out on July 20th. I remember I wore my Batman Begins hat that I don't have anymore. I wore a Batman utility belt. I was so fucking excited. And I sat down in the theater and I was truly fucking blown away. There are so many flaws with The Dark Knight Rises. I would say even more than Batman Begins and The Dark Knight combined. But I look over those flaws. Was it truly an epic conclusion? It was. Was I so satisfied with this film, with its performances by Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway's Catwoman? Yes, I was. I love the IMAX sequences in this film. I love the score by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. I just something about this film where you can sit down and you're like, this is epic. We're watching something epic here. And 90% of it's practical. It's just something about The Dark Knight Rises, whether it's the design of the film, the feeling, being in the fucking pit, watching Bruce escape and you're rooting for him. These are things that move you as a film. And I remember, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. It came, I think it was 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, it was 4 years after Dark Knight. And I cried when Batman died on screen, even though he's still alive. I fucking cried in that theater, and I still get emotional to it. It just shows you a whole path, right? I saw Batman Begins when I was in kindergarten, I think it was, back in 2006, I think it was. And from that point on, then seeing The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises over almost 10 years with all these films combined from its start, roughly, it truly is something that you get, hi buddy, you get immersed in these films. People don't, a lot of like outside viewers or audiences and that, at least for me, and I know there's so many people out there that are probably even watching this video, when you watch a film, usually you're hit by it some way, whether it makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you feel something, makes you feel inspirational. And the thing that The Dark Knight Rises does, it makes you feel a lot of things. It makes you feel emotion on different levels of inspiration, makes you feel the heart of the film. That these are I basically grew up with these characters, especially Batman, played by Christian Bale. Hi buddy. It truly is something that is so special, at least to me. And I don't know, like I've always said this too. People always wonder, oh, who's your favorite filmmaker? And I always go to Nolan, because not even just these three big films right here, whether it's Inception, whether it's Interstellar, Memento, or anything, The Prestige, these films that he made truly do impact you in a way. It makes you think, it makes you wonder. He treats his audience not like they're dumb. He treats you like you're an adult. Watch the film, and then you understand these different themes and elements and things like that. One thing I did want to talk about with The Dark Knight Rises, one of my favorite sequences is obviously the battle for Gotham. It's during the daylight, one of the first times you ever see Batman out in the daylight in any film, and it is truly awesome. The way that they set it up, the back and behind the scenes of getting all these people on, I think it was Wall Street, fucking rush together and cause this big collision. It is so insane. But the rise and the whole legacy of the Dark Knight trilogy, it is truly something that I don't think could ever really be replicated to the level that Christopher Nolan has done. I think Matt Reeves has got so much potential. I love the Batman. I don't think it is better than the Dark Knight, so to speak. Maybe the Batman Part 2 blows me away even more. I think he's got a good start. There's definitely problems with the Batman 2. Pacing is a big thing for me. But for me, I don't think you can ever replicate what the Dark Knight trilogy achieved at the time. Whether it is the Dark Knight, no matter what, whether you love or hate this statement, the Dark Knight has changed the comic book genre. The trilogy has as a whole, whether it's its style, its tone, its visuals, its messages throughout the film. Films like the Marvel films later on, Winter Soldier, I like to compare it to, or I like to compare things that definitely Marvel took inspiration from that get those tones. I definitely go with Winter Soldier, or I would say even maybe Thor, kind of Thor here and there, but grounding characters, superhero characters, and make you feel them. That's what the Dark Knight achieved at its time in 2008. And it truly set the road. Whether you like to hear that or not, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's up to you to decide. I personally think it's a good thing. but that's where it laid the groundwork. And then you got films like Man of Steel, you got films like Batman vs Superman and Justice League, and people like, people hate, but the thing and the matter of fact is, the Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight, laid the groundwork. The whole trilogy did, so to speak. And when you look at all three of those films, you never really thought, like, I never thought about it like until later on, but they really do feel like a full journey of a character, a beginning, middle, and end. You spend about almost 8 hours with this one character being Bruce, and you see every level of things that he goes through at his point in time of being Batman, whether it's his first year to him becoming the Batman again. Something that I love talking about these films, guys. There's not, for me, there's been so much said about the Dark Knight trilogy, whether it's its legacy or the true rise of it. But what I will say though is I could never get bored of talking about it. And you guys may get bored of me saying or talking about it, but it is truly something remarkable that was achieved at its time. And I truly don't believe we will ever get to that level again. I think it was a once in a lifetime capturing lightning in a bottle. I don't think we'll ever get that. I would love us to. But guys, let me know your thoughts below on the Dark Knight trilogy. You guys love it, hate it? What's your favorite one? Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys real soon.